And if that's it for now, let me turn now to our guest, Kishan Khoday, who is the UN Development Program's resident representative for the Bahamas, Belize, Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, and Turks and Caicos. And he's speaking to us from Kingston, Jamaica, to brief on the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Mr. Khoday, thanks. Good to see you. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. Pleasure to be with you today. Hurricane Melissa at Category 5 made landfall on 28th October with 300 kilometers per hour winds. Hurricane Melissa was the worst climate disaster in Jamaica's history. UNDP, United Nations Development Program, expresses solidarity with the people of Jamaica during this difficult time. UNDP is shocked and saddened by the devastating loss of life and suffering caused by this disaster. Initial estimates show that the damage caused is approximately the equivalent of 30% of Jamaica's GDP, a figure that's expected to rise. This devastating hurricane left a trail of destruction across Western Jamaica and Central Jamaica, loss of life, homes, businesses, farms, infrastructure destroyed, livelihoods severely impacted, and tons of debris littered across the island. Now, before I get to some data and information related to our initial impact assessments and our initial activities, I want to give you a sense of how it is at the local community level. In recent days, UNDP has been able to visit the town of New Hope in Western Jamaica, where Hurricane Melissa, where the eye of the storm made initial landfall on the 28th of October. We met, among many community members, Keith, who on that day came out from his dwelling. And when Keith came out of his dwelling on that day, on that morning, he looked up. He looked up at the sky and he saw bright sunshine from above, looking straight up through the eye of the storm. Imagine that, with yellow and orange light shining everywhere around as the eye came right across that town of New Hope at the epicenter. And at first, he thought that the storm had passed with this sunlight and what were clear skies in that particular spot. But soon, the devastating nature and record winds and impact on that local community were unleashed. Keith then took shelter in a safe spot in a neighboring structure with the plywood in front of him, holding it as he kneeled on the floor for hours, waiting for this hurricane to pass. And when he came out, what he found was utter devastation. Gone were his livelihood, gone was his dwelling, loss of community members, loss of utter devastation to the landscape around in what was before a lush, thriving community. Now, this shows the face of the climate emergency as an exacerbator, pushing people into poverty and displacement. But Keith's story, beyond showing some of the local needs in terms of loss of livelihood, loss of life and community, is also a testament to the resilience of Jamaica and Jamaicans. And we stand by Keith as we move both to relief and the important recovery work ahead. Now, UNDP, through our digital impact assessment platform, AI-powered tools, has seen that close to 5 million metric tons of debris have been created across Western Jamaica. This would fill approximately 500,000 standard truckloads, to give you a sense of the scale of the magnitude. This includes 2 million metric tons of building debris from the buildings that have been damaged, 1.3 million tons of vegetation debris, unimaginable destruction of forests and landscape in Western Jamaica, 1.4 million metric tons of personal property debris. This shows the key challenges and level of destruction, including impacts on roads and other infrastructure. In support of this response and recovery process, UNDP initially has an allocation of $400,000 for some of the basic initial assessment work, some of the initial support to our national partners on planning ahead in the immediate future for early recovery and medium-term recovery, with a rapid recovery team being deployed as we speak to support our national partners in the needs that they will be identifying and to support our communities on the ground with some of those key initiatives. UNDP's offer focuses on recovery plans and strategies, on SME and livelihoods recovery, on solar for community needs, for debris removal, restoration of ecosystems. Debris removal, as I mentioned, is critical to kickstart opening up those avenues for bringing in critical aid and bringing in that process to remote communities for that recovery process to soon begin. This builds on our strong track record as UNDP of over 50 years here in Jamaica, working with local communities on climate change and disaster management, close cooperation with the government of Jamaica as they prioritize the needs and the plans going ahead to respond and recover from this devastating impact, and as a close partner with our UN sister agencies that are here on the ground working tirelessly to bring that relief to needed communities like Keith and others. And with that, I will take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khoday. I'll now turn the floor over for questions. Yes, Noreen Hussain.
Thank you very much. My name is Noreen Hussain with IPS News. Thank you for doing this briefing. You may have mentioned this earlier, so I apologize if I'm asking you to repeat yourself. Could you tell us how many people UNDP and its partners, at least its the sister agencies, have been able to reach with humanitarian aid at the present?
Right. I think I will have to refer that to my colleague. That is a critical data point that's part of the OCHA situation reports, and the OCHA team, that's coordinating our relief and humanitarian relief operations, as was mentioned earlier. So I'll defer to my colleague on that one. But we will be happy, of course, our UNDP media team to be in touch for further information as needed on that.
Yeah, and on that, Noreen, we're getting regular updates from OCHA. There wasn't any today, but if you look at yesterday's briefing, we have some figures.
If I can ask a follow-up, then I mean, just based on it's been a few days since the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, but what have been some of the immediate needs that your partners have been able to identify in terms of recovery? What can you say on that?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there are, of course, the immediate relief needs, desperate situation of many communities in the epicenters of impact in Western and Central Jamaica in terms of access to food, access to water, shelter. And so some of the focus of the immediate response from a humanitarian perspective by our colleagues such as WFP, UNICEF, IOM, WHO is really on responding to the government's needs and the community's needs for those kind of items. There's been devastating damage to hospitals. There's been devastating damage to crop fields, to stores of food locally, to water piping and water supply. And so that's the immediate focus over the last week, has been immediate relief. We've also been, of course, discussing and analyzing the early recovery needs, which, as I mentioned in the case of our colleague that we just visited locally, small businesses have been devastating. So getting people back on their feet is really about bringing back livelihood opportunities rapidly, bringing back income sources rapidly to communities that have been devastated, bringing back, as I said, clearing debris, which is really a critical one as well in terms of having access to communities for some of the immediate relief and the longer term work. So these are some of the key items. There's currently a rapid needs assessment that's being completed, led by our OCHA colleagues and others from the CARICOM, SEDIMA sub-regional body, disaster agency. And so that's being completed very soon. So there'll be very important rapid data to share coming out of that by the end of this week.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the room? Do you have any further questions online? Anyone online want to join in? If not, I'd like to thank once again our guest, Kishan Khoday. Thanks from UNDP. Thanks very much for your briefing, and best of luck in your work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, colleagues.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.